At this moment, the whole place was changing color, containing terrifying spiritual power with terrifying pressure. It swallowed up everything at once, like a rolling tide, rushing towards Edmez. Facing Jason's tyrannical attack, Edmez's expression suddenly changed, and the golden fish in his pupils swam, bursting out with 2 rays of golden light. At the same time, the long sword in his hand suddenly flew out. A golden brilliance broke through the void, and the moment the giant sword in Jason's hand struck down on his head, stopped in front of him. In the eyes of countless disciples, the long black dragon formed by the black heavy sword in Jason's hand collided heavily with the golden brilliance released by the long sword in Edmez's hand. Boom! Bow! Boom! Boom! 2 astonishing forces collided. In an instant, the entire world lost its light, and successive void explosions sounded. In the astonished eyes of all the disciples, the black heavy sword in Jason's hand was transformed into the long black dragon, kept slashing down, constantly extinguishing the golden brilliance released by the sword in Edmez's hand. Then a heavy chop fell on the golden sword in Edmez's hand. The vast and sharp spiritual power swept across, and Edmez's long golden hair flew all over the sky, like a crazy demon, and the golden robes on his body fluttered, and were torn apart in the raging spiritual power. Son! Ah! Edmez roared in his mouth. The whole person kept retreating on the ring. Every time he took a step, a piece of the ring would collapse. He took more than 10 steps back before he stopped. His face was flushed at first, and then turned extremely pale, looking quite embarrassed. You guy! Edmez stared at Jason. A roar came out of his mouth, and this time, he was completely angry. When Jason attacked earlier, the powerful spiritual power and majesty only surprised him a little. But he hasn't taken it to heart yet. So it was just a simple interception. But I didn't expect it. The power contained in it was so huge that it not only destroyed all his attacks, but also made him take 10 steps back in full view of everyone. As the second-ranked expert on the elixir list, Edmez is extremely proud. In this elixir list competition, he has only one goal, and that is to knock Lan Yugusin from the first position. As for others, even Cassinus, the master who ranked 3rd on the elixir list, did not take it to heart. After all, the other party was just defeated by him last time. In Edmez's opinion, other players could solve the problem instantly, but now, as a newcomer, Jason not only blocked his initial attack, but also made him retreat for 10 consecutive times in the ring just now. After a few steps, his clothes were torn. The whole person was in an extremely embarrassed state. This made Edmez, who had always been extremely proud, completely forgiven. In the delivery room, all the disciples were shocked when they saw the previous scene. Even Pastor and others at the VIP table had astonishment in their eyes. They never expected that Jason's previous scene one blow was able to make Edmez, who was ranked 2nd on the elixir list, retreat. You guys have completely pissed me off. Very good. I'll let you know if you piss me off, Edmez. The consequences of this. Edmez stood still on the ring, staring at Jason coldly with his golden eyes filled with coldness, and said coldly in his mouth, boom, as his words fell. An invisible ripple emanated from Edmez's body, and the whole world seemed to turn into gold in an instant. The space within the entire arena was restrained. To be precise, Edmez destroyed everything within the arena. The metal spiritual element was completely controlled. This is the battle space gold element barrier unique to this 8th level gold emperor spiritual master. And at the same time as Edmez's golden elemental barrier was released, buzz. A golden spiritual ring instantly floated from his head, and at the same time, the shadow of a huge spiritual beast appeared behind Edmez's head. This was a golden giant beast, more than 10 meters high. It's tens of meters long, with golden scales flashing all over its body. It had 4 thick and powerful thighs and a long tail covered with spikes swaying in the void, emitting astonishing fluctuations in spiritual power. Its golden eyes stared coldly at Jason not far away. Unparalleled murderous intent and strong will suddenly enveloped Jason's body. This is Brother Edma's 7th level ultimate spiritual ring. It's the golden armored sky-devouring beast. Oh my god, why did Brother Edmas even use this move? It seems that Jason has completely angered Brother Edmas, and he is going to be in trouble. Many disciples exclaimed, as the master ranked second on the elixir list. Many disciples had seen some of Edma's tricks in the last elixir ranking competition, so everyone was very familiar with them. Edmas also used this 7th level extreme spirit ring in the last competition, but that time his opponent was Cassinus, who was currently ranked 3rd. Under this blow, even Cassinus suffered a big loss. Across the ring. After feeling the 7th level extreme spiritual ring cast by Edmas, Jason was also a little surprised. In Stern Continent, the absorption of spiritual rings is extremely difficult and dangerous. When a spiritual master absorbs a 5th level spiritual ring, he or she would not dare to absorb any more because the physical requirements for the spiritual master are too high. Even if there are auxiliary medicines, it is very likely that the person will go crazy in the process of absorbing the soul and die. Therefore, the spiritual rings of most spiritual masters. They are all low-level spiritual rings. It is difficult to see spiritual rings above the 6th level, let alone the 7th level spiritual rings. Spirit ring skills generally appear extremely powerful at low levels, but as the level of a spiritual master increases, the effects of low-level spirit rings become less obvious. It's like the soul shock Jason got after absorbing the spiritual heart of the First Order 9-headed fearful phantom. Although it is powerful, it can only affect spiritual masters with weak soul power, but it is completely ineffective against 9th level spiritual masters. As for the 8th level Emperor Spirit Master, his spiritual power also began to gradually transform into the power of his soul. It will also cause the effect to be weakened to a certain extent, and it will not be able to play a decisive role in the battle like it was at the beginning of the low level. This is because the 9-headed fear phantom is so powerful. For example, Jason's 2nd golden ring, the silver python spiritual ring, received a fatal blow. When Jason was a 2nd level spiritual warrior, this fatal blow skill, it can increase Jason's combat power several times in an instant. But now that Jason has advanced to the 7th level of the advanced Imperial Spirit Master, it is naturally impossible to have such an effect, and the amplitude obtained is almost negligible. Therefore, even though these genius core disciples like those in the Spirit Medicine Master Tower, almost all of them have numerous spiritual rings. But they are all low-level spirit rings, so spirit ring skills are rarely used during battles. But the abilities brought by 7th level spiritual rings are extremely terrifying, just like Jason's 3rd spiritual ring and the 3rd level of Phoenix Flame of the 9th level Holy Beast Immortal Fire Phoenix. Even after being promoted to the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master, the improvement for Jason is huge. It can make the spiritual attack of Jason, an advanced Imperial Spiritual Master, reach the level of an 8th level intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master after being struck. However, with Jason's understanding of the 5 elements law, Jason himself was able to kill an 8th level intermediate Emperor Spiritual Master, and with the practice of the God-destroying killing technique, Jason gradually stopped using the 3rd level of Feng Yen wave. But for other spiritual masters, the 7th level ultimate spiritual ring. For their amplitude, it can definitely increase his attack power by a large amount in an instant. In particular, the 7th level spirit ring of Edmas absorbs the spiritual heart of the golden armored sky-devouring beast. The golden armored sky-devouring beast is an emperor level spiritual beast at the peak of the 7th level. An existence that is as powerful as the thorn-horned Tyrannosaurus, or even more powerful than it, with the skills it brings. Even more amazing. In front of the ring, Edmas looked at Jason coldly. The spiritual power fluctuations emitted from his body continued to increase, and the amazing golden spiritual power enveloped the world. The mystery of gold, the sky-eating sword. Edmas said coldly, countless golden spiritual elements continued to condense under the fusion of laws, and a golden giant sword exuding a terrifying aura was formed in Edmas' hand, concubine. Without any hesitation, Edmes controlled the golden giant sword, aimed at Jason, and slashed it down. Rumble. The entire void collapsed, forming huge space vortexes. The metal spiritual elements in the surrounding space of the arena were also strangely attracted and completely integrated into the sword, with the power of the sword. It's simply terrifyingly strong. However, Jason was fearless. An astonishing fighting spirit broke out in his body. The god-destroying technique circulated. Every inch of flesh and blood in his body showed a secret, forming endless laws. He wanted to manifest the invisible laws into tangible forms. Power, steal life and death, seize fortune. Just when the golden giant sword in Edmes' hand was about to hit Jason, Jason's eyes suddenly burst into light, and an inexplicable domineering force naturally emerged from his body, a kind of self-sacrifice. Who else, with a solemn spirit in the sky and on earth, rushed out with a fighting spirit that made people tremble? At this moment, he inspired the strongest blow of the god-destroying killing technique, and the strange black power in his body boiled. The 5 elements rotate. 7 times the combat power. Jason roared in his heart, and the black épée in his hand trembled. It instantly turned into an Optimus pillar, soaring into the sky on the sky arena, connecting the sky and the earth. Under the blow of Jason's hands, cut it off and collapsed suddenly. This blow contained Jason's strongest power when he faced the seriously injured golden-armored crab beast. Jason relied on this blow to split the golden-armored crab beast into pieces. When the sword fell, everything around it disappeared, and only the black heavy sword containing terrifying spiritual power remained in the sky. Tear and pull. The sky around Jason also collapsed, cracks in space appeared, and a huge black hole appeared, swallowing everything. Silently, in full view of everyone, the black épée and the golden giant sword were in the sky above the center of the ring. They hit each other hard. Boom! Endless spiritual power exploded, as if 2 planets were colliding in the universe. The golden giant sword, controlled by Edmes, cracked and shattered. Then, with a bang, the extremely condensed golden giant sword exploded. It turns into golden spiritual mist that fills the sky and disperses. A powerful force struck Jason directly from a distance. Text provided by Huancher Chinese website, bang. Jason's black armor trembled violently. A terrifying huge force was weakened by the black U armor and was fiercely transmitted into Jason's body. The black épée controlled by Jason also trembled, and the Optimus pillar, transformed by the terrifying spiritual power, exploded. The billowing spiritual power swept across, annihilating everything, and engulfed Edmes on the opposite side. Bang! Bang! A dull explosion sounded, and 2 figures flew backwards from the violent and dazzling spiritual power, and hit the ring hard. Amidst the roar, the black rock ground on the ring shook. Cracked. Countless gravels scattered in all directions, plowing out a deep ravine. Ahem, Jason coughed lowly, and a trace of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Although Edmund's previous attack was defeated by him, the broken spiritual power entered his body and crisscrossed his body, which also gave him a great deal of strength. The injury. On the opposite side, Edmund's face was pale. There was also a trace of blood slipping from the corner of his mouth. The golden robe on his body was completely broken at this moment, revealing the inner armor. The whole person looked extremely embarrassed. Wow! Seeing this due to the situation, the disciples in the entire square couldn't help but make a lot of noise. This, am I right? Injured. Senior brother Edmes was injured under the attack of senior brother Jason. What is going on? What's going on? What brother Edmes cast was a 7th level ultimate spirit ring. Why didn't brother Jason lose? Evenly matched, evenly matched. Did you see it? Both men suffered trauma from previous attacks. In the entire square, countless voices of discussion were heard in an instant. Xianyu disciples widened their eyes, looking at the 2 people who were evenly matched on the stage, and felt bursts of disbelief. Regardless, Edmez didn't defeat Jason with a single sword blow. Still, Jason was able to withstand Edmez's attack, which shocked all the disciples. "You actually made me hurt?" Feeling his injured body, Edmez's originally angry expression calmed down instantly, and his cold eyes stared at Jason from afar. After completely eliminating the violent spiritual power of Edmez's previous blow in his body, Jason's indifferent eyes happened to collide with Edmez's eyes, and their eyes intertwined. Jason could find that the arrogance in the latter's eyes had completely disappeared. There was only dignity and attention. After the previous blow, this arrogant man finally regarded Jason as an equal opponent. "Jason, you really have a few tricks up your sleeve. I underestimated you at first, and I have to admit it. You have the ability to let me use all my strength. Then, let you see why I, Edmez, can occupy the second position in the elixir list. What is your true strength?" Edmez looked at Jason calmly, full of solemnity. The eyes that were constantly flowing with golden light suddenly appeared with a golden light at this moment. Fantasy Chinese website provides text at the same time. The aura of Edmez's whole body also continued to rise. The entire ground was filled with golden spiritual power, and the entire sky above the arena turned into a golden glow. The void could not help but tremble. Edmez's whole body glowed with golden light, and a strong aura continued to rise from his body, and then buzz. Countless golden sword shadows flew out of Edmez's body. Thousands of golden lights appeared over the entire arena. Countless sword shadows floated for a while, and the original power of the golden law emerged throughout the arena. Then combined with the spiritual power released by Edmez, it instantly condensed into a world of one side and a world of one sword. On the arena, countless golden rays of light were like thousands of golden swords flying in the air. They were constantly turning and trembling slightly. The terrifying golden power seemed to spread out, causing the space to distort. "Oh my God, it's the world of swords, it's really the world of swords." In order to deal with senior brother Jason, senior brother Edmez actually used the world of swords. That means you must understand the power of the original law of the metal system. Only by controlling the unique mysteries of the laws of the metal system can he perform moves that are astonishingly powerful. It seems that senior brother Edmez has completely regarded senior brother Jason as his opponent. Indeed, with the strength of senior brother Edmez, the previous blow was in our core hall. In addition to senior sister Lanuigusan and brother Kasanashua, senior brother Jason was the third one to block. In the square, many disciples exclaimed, obviously shocked that Edmez actually used World of Swords against Jason. The text provided by Huancher Chinese website, The World of Swords, this Edmez. The understanding of the laws of the metal system has reached such an extent. On the other side of the ring, I felt the power of oppression squeezing from everywhere around me. The stirring, unparalleled sharp golden sword energy, there was also a hint of solemnity in Jason's eyes. I heard from my father that the mysterious laws of the metal system were divided into 9 levels before Deshang. The 9 styles of controlling the secret method he practiced were created based on these 9 levels. Among them, the first style is the one-sword style, and the second style is the 3-sword style. The third style of phantom sword style, the fourth style of 10,000 swords returning to the sect, the fifth style of space cutting. And this sixth style is the world of swords. When my father reached the 5th level of space cutting, he was able to kill the 8th level intermediate Emperor Linden, the patriarch of the Decker family, with the strength of the 8th level low-level Emperor, spiritual master. And this Edmez actually understood the world of the 6th heavy sword, and he is worthy of being the 2nd-ranked master on the list of elixirs because of Renault. Jason also has a deep understanding of the divisions of the golden laws of opponents, and he himself also practices the law of the 5 elements. As for the laws of the metal system, Jason has also understood the extent of space cutting, but for the world of swords, Jason still lacks and has not understood it. The law of the sword, thousands of swords return to the clan. Cut the space and form a world of its own. Edmez roared in his mouth, and the terrifying spiritual power was aimed at Jason and squeezed out. Boom! Countless sword energy spread across the sky. These golden spiritual powers were not directly aimed at Jason to attack. Instead, they used the unique world laws to squeeze Jason. At the same time, thousands of golden swords suddenly looked like a huge giant in the sea. Like a shoal of swimming fish, densely packed with thousands of golden rapiers, under the control of Edmits, flew towards Jason crazily. Boom! Boom! Hey! There were bursts of harsh sounds in the air, and golden thin swords were aimed at Jason from all directions. Like a golden monster, it aimed at Jason and opened its huge mouth, to devour Jason in one bite. The sword light that filled the sky was everywhere, annihilating everything. The air was cut open, and countless tiny space cracks appeared. Such an astonishing scene, the terrifying golden laws were released. All the disciples present were stunned. Even the guardians at the VIP table were all shocked, their eyes staring at the ring for a moment. Edmy's understanding of the laws of the metal system. Even the protectors like them were far behind, and the several hall masters and elders also looked solemnly, paying attention to the changes in the arena. Facing Edmy's horrific attack, Jason's face was also solemn as never before, and the golden spirit beads were moving. The metal elemental barrier was released, and at the same time, the god-destroying art was running in his body. Astonishing five-element spiritual power was released, and an unconcealable coercion rose from his body, aiming at the place where Edmys was. Rush away. Fantasy Chinese website provides text, boom, boom. Boom. The golden swords all over the sky kept bombarding Jason, but they were constantly cut down by the black heavy sword in Jason's hand. But occasionally, some fish slipped through the net and broke Jason's defense, bombarding him. There were tiny grooves left on the black armor on Jason's body. Wave after wave of terrifying power continued to pass into Jason's body. Jason felt that his internal organs were being broken at this moment, his muscles were trembling, and his body was constantly trembling and shaking, but he remained unwavering and incomparable. Amidst the huge obstacles, he rushed towards Edmits' location. Being constantly bombarded gave Jason a deep understanding of the world of swords. The golden spirit beads in his mind kept spinning, giving Jason an unspeakable experience. At this moment, Jason felt that his golden laws seemed to have been sublimated, and he vaguely touched the threshold of the laws of the world of golden swords. Huh? On the other side of the ring, seeing Jason never retreating in the world of swords, Edmys' face couldn't help but change. The world of swords is extremely powerful, and those golden thin swords look inconspicuous, but they are actually extremely powerful. They are all sharp and contain the power of law. They are not comparable to ordinary sword rainbows, but they cannot break through the black armor defense of Jason's body. In that case, Edmy's eyes narrowed. The world of swords, condense, the sword of the world. As Edmys spoke out, the golden space that originally enveloped the entire arena quickly shrunk, and countless golden sword energies continued to shrink and condense, and then formed a nearly 10-meter-long sword in front of Edmys. Huge golden sword. The nearly 10-meter-long golden giant sword completely contained the world of swords, and the highly condensed energy trembled. The space at the edge of the sword blade is directly filled with dark cracks cut by the automatically dissipated sword energy. This is the sword of the world. On the square, all the disciples were stunned, and Cassinus burst out with a divine light from his eyes. In the last elixir list competition, Edmys used this move to inflict violent injuries on him, causing him to be eliminated in third place. In everyone's frightened eyes, break it for me. On the ring, Edmys roared. The golden giant sword, which was nearly 10 meters high and 1 foot wide, cut through the void like a sky pillar and aimed at Jason and slashed it down. How can Jason resist this sword? Rumble. Like pushing down a mountain of gold and knocking down a jade pillar, the golden giant sword in Edmys' hand suddenly fell down. The originally hazy and trembling blade began to tremble, and a dazzling golden light bloomed. Wow! Amidst the ear-piercing sound of the fabric bursting, the golden giant sword cut through the void, directly cutting a huge space gap in the void. A huge space crack suddenly appeared in the eyes of countless disciples, with violent space turbulence raging inside, kept flashing and extinguishing. The terrifying aura dispersed, and all the disciples in the square held their breath. Each of them opened their eyes wide, looking at Jason, who was slashed by the golden giant sword for an instant, and couldn't help but fiercely he swallowed hard. On the ring, feeling the terrifying giant sword that struck him down, the hairs all over Jason's body stood up for a moment. A trace of the shadow of death suddenly floated in his mind, making his heart skip a beat. He tightened his grip all of a sudden. For the first time under Edma's terrifying attack, Jason felt the threat of death. He had no doubt that if he let the golden giant sword fall on him, he would probably die in an instant. Seriously injured, or even death. However, there was no fear on Jason's face. At this critical moment, his consciousness was completely silent, and the 5 elements of spiritual power in his body suddenly became violent under the rapid operation of the spirit god art. The 5 elements flow, creating and inhibiting each other. Earth generates metal, metal generates water, water generates wood, wood generates fire, and fire inhibits metal. Jason let out a roar. At this moment, all the 5 elements of spiritual power in Jason's body boiled. The golden spirit beads, wood spirit beads, and earth spirit beads also rotated rapidly. The 5 elements of spiritual energy in the body transformed into each other, and finally formed the fire element spirit force. At the same time, the original power of the immortal fire phoenix hidden in Jason's body after absorbing the spiritual heart of the immortal fire phoenix was also driven. The shadow of a huge flaming bird quietly appeared above Jason's head. The immortal fire phoenix was burning all over and was extremely domineering. Looking up to the sky and roaring, the flames all over his body emitted a dazzling red light and spread out. A fatal blow. Fing Yan's triple wave. The god-destroying technique has 7 times the combat power. Jason looked like he was crazy. Within the body, the strange black power circulated crazily along the trajectory of the god-destroying art. A unique domineering aura emerged from Jason, and the amplitude of 7 times the combat power suddenly blessed the fire spiritual power in his body. Boo! 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 The 7th level advanced spiritual power in Jason's body reached an unimaginable level at this moment. Even the meridians of his 8th level peak body were also it was difficult to hold up, and it kept bursting under the squeeze of the terrifying spiritual power. Wounds were opened on the body, and puffs of blood spurted out from them. An indescribable terrifying power suddenly rose from Jason's body, and the terrifying pressure made the entire sky darken instantly. As if the end was coming, all the disciples had difficulty breathing. Facing Edmund's golden sword attack, Jason boosted his fighting power to the maximum. A ball of light suddenly burst out from his eyes, and the black heavy sword in his hand suddenly slashed out. Boom! A scene that Jason didn't expect happened. The black épée in his hand suddenly lit up, emitting a dazzling red light. An unspeakable aura dispersed from it, and a giant flame emerged from the black épée. The sword spurted out, forming a huge flaming sword in the void that was nearly 10 meters long and 1 foot wide. On the sky arena, 2 huge swords, 1 golden and 1 red, each occupied half of the sky, tearing open the sky. In the shocked eyes of all the disciples, they collided like meteorites. At this moment, time stopped. Boom! The next moment, in everyone's horrified eyes, an uncontrollable and earth-shattering explosion suddenly exploded in the void. The entire void solidified, leaving only a dazzling light. Terrifying energy, like an approaching tsunami, suddenly exploded in midair. The void suddenly collapsed, revealing a pitch-black black hole in space. The surrounding spiritual elements became chaotic in an instant, forming terrifying spiritual storms. The dying spiritual light exploded in the blue sky. Destructive energy spread out from the void and spread around. Wherever it went, the air shattered like glass and turned into space. Turbulence. Under the bombardment of this terrifying force, the restrictions around the entire sky arena were constantly trembling, and it seemed that they might break at any time. In the square, the faces of all the disciples changed, their mouths opened wide, and their eyes could not hide the fear. Even the many guardians, hall masters, and elders at the VIP table looked at them in shock. The arena exploded with a bang. They all stood up involuntarily, standing there stupidly, looking at the sky where Jason and Edmets were. They couldn't wait to know what happened in this previous event. After the hit, who won the victory? The dazzling light dissipated, and in the smoke, a golden figure fell from the sky. Wherever it went, blood filled the sky, bringing out a long blood mist. Pung! Edmes hit the ring hard, his body kept jerking and convulsing, and blood spattered freely from the wounds on his body. He was covered in ragged clothes, and fell unconscious on the ring. Hiss! Looking at this unexpected scene, all the disciples couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, with unconcealed horror in their eyes. Even the guardians were stunned for a moment. His eyes were widened, revealing a strong sense of disbelief. At the same time, in the smoke and dust that filled the sky, another black figure slowly descended. His body was dripping with blood, and the dark black armor was cracked and stained with blood, which was shocking. Boom! As soon as Jason landed on the ring, he knelt down on one knee with the black ape standing there. A mouthful of blood spat out from his mouth. His body shook and trembled. If it weren't for the black ape holding him up, I'm afraid it's difficult to stand at all. However, his eyes were shining like stars in the night sky, shining with a light that was hard to ignore as he looked at the protector on the drawing table. Referee, the game isn't over yet, Jason spoke with difficulty. His words had an unspeakable persistence, which made people feel extremely shocked. Silence. There was deathly silence in the entire sky arena. No one made a sound, only the howling of the wind. The sky arena that had been destroyed due to the previous battle between Jason and Edmets was filled with smoke and dust, and the smoke and dust swept across, leaving Jason standing. The figure flickers in and out of the smoke. All the disciples looked blankly at Edmets, who was unconscious and covered in blood on the ring, and then at Jason, who was kneeling on one knee not far away. Lost senior brother Edmes, who ranked second on the elixir list, was defeated like this? Far unbelievable. Everyone's hearts were filled with shock. The eyes they looked at Jason had completely changed. It was a look filled with awe and incomparable reverence, as if the young man standing in front of them at this moment was not alone. Rather, he is like a god, making people afraid to look directly at him. Who is Edmes? In the city in the sky, this is a name full of great reputation. The 8th level high-level Emperor Spirit Master, the 8th level low-level Elixir Emperor, occupy the second position on the Elixir list all year round. This is a name that makes people feel shuddering and in a trembling position. In the Sky City, he is a legend, admired by countless genius disciples who are called monsters in the outside world, and do not dare to resist at all. But now, this legend has been defeated. It was defeated by a disciple who had just joined the spiritual medicine master pagoda for a year, which shocked countless people. Moreover, everyone could clearly see the previous battle between Jason and Edmes. Jason did not use any unethical methods. He was completely head-on. He relied on his own strength to fight Edmes. In the end, it was slightly better. On the drawing table, the referee also swallowed hard and announced, in this round of duel, player number 2 Edmets will face player number 2 Jason, and Jason wins. Wow. As the referee made the announcement, countless applause sounded like a wave in the square. All the disciples did not hesitate to give their applause to the two who had given them such a wonderful battle. People. At this moment, everyone understood that a rising star had risen in the Sky City. His birth was like the rise of a comet, which was impossible to stop or ignore. As the referee's result was announced, Jason let out a long breath. His body swayed and he almost fell down. At this moment, a faint fragrance came from his side, and then, a weak but powerful slender hand suddenly hugged him. It was Blue Moongoosen who flew up from the square, and Cassinus was also following her closely, but he looked at Jason with a shocked expression, and a wry smile on his lips. Edmuz was the only target he wanted to defeat in this elixir list competition, but now he was defeated by Jason. And looking at Edmuz's injury, it was obvious that he would not be able to participate in the next game. Even if Jason was probably also in danger, which made Cassinus feel extremely disappointed. Without Edmuz as an opponent, what else can Cassinus expect from the next game? Of course, Cassinus was the only one who felt this way. Many masters who ranked in the top 10 on the last elixir list were secretly happy. Edmuz was seriously injured and fell into a coma. Jason was also unable to support himself. It seemed that it will be difficult to participate in the next duel. Without the two of them, the next competition for ranking will be much easier. Maybe, as long as they work hard, someone may enter the top 3 that can only always be climbed. Of course, everyone also knew that as soon as the two of them recovered from their injuries, they could regain that ranking, but being able to stay in the top 3 for 10.5 years was an extremely proud honor. Under the awe and admiration of the audience, Jason, who was seriously injured, and Edmuz, who was in a coma, were carried out of the square and sent back to the treatment room of the core hall for treatment. Even after Jason and Edmuz were sent away, the entire square was still noisy, with everyone talking and making a lot of noise. Ahem. The referee on the drawing table also coughed. Because of the venue, everyone will rest in the square for half an hour. After the arena is repaired, the final showdown will begin. Then after everyone has had a rest at noon, we will directly have a 10-5 showdown in the afternoon. The previous 80-40 and 40-20 battles required a huge amount of time due to the large number of battles. In a whole day, if 20 is entered into 10 today, it can be completed in half a day, so in the next half day, a duel between 10 and 5 will be held. While countless disciples were resting in the square, the faces of Elder Waterfield and others at the VIP table were full of solemnity. Unbelievable, unbelievable, this Jason actually defeated Edmuz, it's really unbelievable. Master Pastor sighed with emotion. This is indeed incredible. I think we all know the strength of Edmuz. Even if we want to defeat him, we still need to use all our strength. Then Jason is a 7th level advanced Imperial Spiritual Master, right? Was able to defeat him, this 5 elements of spiritual power. Did you just see that Jason's spiritual power has 5 spiritual power attributes, and he is actually a 5 attribute spiritual master, and he was trained by him at the level of the 7th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master. As long as he can break through the obstacles of multiple attributes, break through the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master, and advance to the 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master, his future will be limitless. There is actually a person in our Spiritual Medicine Master Tower. Such a talented disciple is really a blessing to our Spiritual Medicine Master Tower. In the upcoming trial competition for the top disciples of the continent's top forces, maybe our Spiritual Medicine Master Tower will make a difference. Kevlin, I remember that Jason was the one you introduced to the Elixir Master Tower, right? How good is his attainment in elixir science? And the skills he cultivated are actually able to make him so good in terms of the 5 elements attributes. Such profound attainments are by no means ordinary skills. Do you understand them? At the VIP table, Elder Waterfield glanced at Elder Coughlin, his eyes full of questions, and the few beside him, the Palace Master, also looked at Elder Sevlin curiously. Elder Coughlin smiled and said, Elder Waterfield, it is indeed Jason who I introduced to the Elixir Master Tower in this Continental Elite competition. Regarding Jason's attainments in elixir science, I can only use 8 words to describe it. Elder Coughlin looked at the crowd calmly and uttered 8 words, excellent talent, unfathomable. Excellent talent, unfathomable? Elder Chittick sneered on the side, Elder Sevlin, although you introduced Jason, your evaluation of him is too exaggerated. The faces of the other palace masters and Elder Waterfield around them were also puzzled, although they did not make a sound, but there was also a trace of doubt in Elder Kevlin's words, but they did not say anything because they knew that Elder Kevlin would explain it carefully. Haha. Feeling the suspicious eyes of everyone, Elder Coughlin smiled. Elder Waterfield, fellow palace masters, I think there was a report submitted by me last year on the wave-particle duality of the essence particles of spiritual elements. Everyone has read it. This report was researched by Jason and Master Benjamin from the Northwest. I think you all understand what this report means to the existing elixir science. As for Jason's work, I think Hall Master Alphonsus and Hall Master Cornelius also know their strength in elixir science. On the side, Hall Master Alphonsus and Hall Master Cornelius listened. After hearing what Elder Coughlin said, everyone nodded. Immediately, the two of them prepared the 8th level Emperor level elixir that Jason had bet with Paltero on Elixir City and used the 7th level intermediate elixir master to prepare the elixir of heaven and earth. The incident was narrated on the spot. What? Then when Jason was a 7th level intermediate imperial spiritual master, he prepared an 8th level emperor level elixir? After hearing the two people's stories, everyone moved, their eyes filled with horror. Although they are all senior members of the Elixir Master Tower, they usually practice in their own mansions and rarely inquire about matters between their disciples. Therefore, the matter of Jason and Paltrow is a sensation in Elixir City, but they were unaware of it. Just like Pasteur, who is still the master of the core hall, but can't even figure out the ranking among the core disciples, how can he ask about what happened in the Elixir City? Now when they heard that Jason was actually a 7th level intermediate imperial spiritual master, and had prepared an 8th level emperor level elixir, their expressions all paled, and the surprise in their eyes was even greater than before. Jason defeated Ed Miz, and the shock was coming. As for the technique that Jason practiced, I don't know. Elder Kevlin continued. When Jason first joined the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, I gave him the technique of Yen Ji Jin Earth technique. But now it seems that what Jason is practicing is not the Yanjijin Earth technique, so I don't know. Isn't it the method of our Spiritual Medicine Master Tower? Elder Waterfield murmured. The whole person was silent for a long time, and then a ray of light suddenly burst out from his eyes. Since Jason's strength is so strong and his expertise in elixir science is so profound, I decided to release Jason to the mainland after the elixir ranking competition is over. Anyway, there is still some time before the trials between the genius disciples of the major forces in the mainland, so we can take advantage of this time to sharpen Jason. Elder Waterfield said solemnly. Release Jason? After hearing Elder Waterfield's words, the faces of all the hall masters present changed color, and Elder Chittick's expression suddenly became extremely ugly, and he spoke coldly. Elder Waterfield, then Jason is a 7th level senior imperial spiritual master. It seems that it is not in compliance with the regulations if he is released now? Regulations? Elder Kevlin spoke up and said indifferently, Chittick Elder, our elixir tower does not seem to have a rule that the disciples of the 7th level senior imperial spiritual master cannot be released, right? And although Jason is only the 7th level senior imperial spiritual master, in terms of strength, he defeated Edmiz. He already fully possesses this qualification. You Elder Chittick suddenly changed his color and shouted loudly, but before he could say anything, he was interrupted by Waterfield. Elder Chittick, this is just my personal opinion. When the time comes, I will report Jason's situation to the 2 deputy tower masters. As for whether to let Jason be released, it will be decided by these 2 adults. Waterfield, I don't think it's good to disturb the 2 adults' retreat for Jason's sake, right? Elder Chittick said coldly. Elder Waterfield's brows suddenly frowned, and he couldn't help but glance at Chittick. He felt that when it came to facing Jason, Elder Chittick seemed he set up barriers everywhere and had some stubborn prejudices against the other party. Elder Waterfield looked at the other people around him. I personally think that Jason has the qualifications to be released. What do you think? I agree. Elder Coughlin was the first to speak out. I also agree that Jason has the strength and qualifications to go out. The master of the assessment hall, Alfang Yaosi, also spoke out. Agree. Master pastor of the core palace also spoke out. Although Jason asked him to lose a dragon pattern crystal to Master Alphonsus, in terms of official business, he would never involve any personal feelings. If Jason defeats Edmez and is not qualified to be released outside, then there is no need for the core hall of our elixir master tower to exist. As for the elixir list, there is no need for it to exist at all. The law enforcement hall, Lord Cornelius said coldly. Since everyone agrees, I will naturally not refuse. Master Baptista of the management palace also laughed. Looking at the people who agreed, Elder Chittick closed his mouth and stopped talking with a livid face. As time passed, the final showdown of 20 to 10 began again. In the end, Balthazar, who was originally ranked 8th on the elixir list, defeated his opponent and entered the top 10 on the elixir list. The time at noon flew by. Not long after the last 20 to 10 duel ended, the 10 to 5 duel began. However, there were only 9 players in this round of duel, because Jason, who was injured in the morning battle, did not participate. However, the person who drew Jason's signature was Cassinus, who was promoted directly, allowing Cassinus to advance directly. While Nusi was bored, he also felt speechless. The battle for the top 10 rankings continued until the evening, and then gradually came to an end. After a fierce and fiery battle, the new ranking of the elixir list has appeared. Ranked first is naturally Lan Yugusan, the monster who has held the first position for countless years. When fighting against her disciples, they either surrendered or were easily defeated without any suspense. The second-ranked person this time became Cassinus. However, Cassinus's face showed no excitement at all. For him, although the second place was important, the real meaning in his heart was what he cared about was defeating Edmez in person, but Jason's strong attack suddenly dashed his original expectations. The one ranked third was taken away by a disciple who was originally ranked 5th on the elixir list. The rankings from 4th to 9th were determined by several other disciples after a fierce battle. As for the 10th place, it belonged to Jason, who did not have a duel with Gujia. But everyone understands that this young man who did not participate in the competition for the top 10 rankings can definitely rank among the top 3 on the elixir list. Although he did not participate in the competition for the top 10 rankings, the powerful figure has stood firm in the hearts of all disciples, making it indelible. The official competition of the vigorous elixir list competition. It finally ended in the enthusiasm of countless disciples, and the ranking of the elixir list was settled. Every disciple was talking about it and flew towards their respective mansions. Although the official competition of the elixir list competition is over, the enthusiasm and fighting spirit of those disciples who entered the elixir list have not been reduced in any way, especially those who are worthy of entering the top 20, and those who are ranked between 20 and 3. The disciples among the 10 are all working hard to prepare for the next duel. According to the rules of the elixir ranking competition, after the official competition, there will be a whole day on the next day, and there will be another fierce challenge match. This challenge match is exactly what it sounds like. The disciples with lower rankings on the elixir list challenge those with higher rankings. Each player has a chance to challenge. They can challenge the disciples who are ranked within the top 10 of themselves. If the opponent is defeated, he will occupy the position of challenging the opponent, and the opponent will fall to the position of challenger. Just like a disciple ranked 25th, he can challenge the 10 disciples ranked 15 to 24. Join him and select 15 to challenge. If he wins, he will successfully advance to the 15th place. The one who originally ranked 15 fell to 25. If he failed, his ranking would not change, and the disciple would also lose the opportunity to challenge. This is to prevent some relying on luck. The players who have just entered the elixir list are in such a challenge. Only those with real strength can stand firm. Otherwise, no matter how high his ranking is, he will only be picked off the elixir list. Of course, in previous elixir list competitions, such challenges rarely resulted in particularly fierce battles. Most disciples are not too enthusiastic. But this time, the top 20 disciples can represent the spiritual medicine master tower. Treeing with the geniuses of the top forces in the continent, this special condition made the 10 disciples ranked between 21 and 30-inch full of enthusiasm. They all gritted their teeth. I am cruel in my heart, even if I am seriously injured tomorrow, I will try to enter the top 20 of this elixir list. And among those disciples who were originally in the top 20, some were not particularly strong. Those who entered the top 20 by luck of the draw also gritted their teeth and vowed to stick to their positions no matter what tomorrow. There must be any mistakes. Of course, in addition to this group of disciples competing for the top 20 places, there is another disciple. His heart is filled with fear, and that is the disciple who won third place in the elixir list competition. He knows deeply that the reason why he was able to get this third place was because of the battle between Jason and Edmes, which resulted in both of them being seriously injured and unable to participate in the afternoon showdown. Now they have a full day of rest, so the strength of these two people took a whole day, and under the treatment of the spiritual medicine master tower, although the injuries could not be healed, there was still no problem in regaining some strength. If either of them wants to take back the third place, he will know it. Even if senior brother Edmes or senior brother Jason only recovered 30% of their own strength, it would not be impossible to defeat him. After countless disciples left the Sky City and returned to their own mansions, the entire Sky City, the hot atmosphere, gradually became deserted. Riot Wuhai, Huashan Island. The night was very quiet. The violent roar of the waves in the Riot Spirit Sea was continuously transmitted to Huashan Island, giving people a sense of peace. A vast and profound feeling. In the valley shrouded by the 5 elements transformation array, Jason was practicing with his eyes closed. The 5 elements spiritual power, like a long river, was constantly swallowing and flowing into his body, filling his meridians and body. Pull. Suddenly, Jason's closed eyes suddenly opened. A golden light bloomed from his eyes, and he suddenly stood up. An inexplicable aura rose from his body and kept rising. Buzz. The metal element barrier suddenly dispersed from Jason's body. Covering the entire valley, the valley that was originally filled with the colorful spiritual power of the 5 elements suddenly turned into a sea of metal elements, and the entire world was filled with tyrannical golden spiritual power. Will the entire valley? They are all rendered golden. Jason is like a golden god who created the world, with golden light blooming all over his body. Light flowed in his eyes, and he stepped out of Tang Kong. A strong aura continued to rise from his body, and then, World of Swords, rise. Jason roared, and the gold spiritual elements in the air suddenly turned green. Weird combination. Buzz. Countless golden sword shadows flew out of Jason's body. Thousands of golden lights appeared over the entire valley. For a time, countless sword shadows floated and trembled in the void. Under the mysterious integration of the golden laws, the golden spiritual power was about to condense into a world. Pung. However, at the moment when the World of Swords was about to take shape, the entire void suddenly collapsed. Thousands of golden lights suddenly collapsed and turned into many golden spiritual elements, dissipating in the air. Ahem. Jason's body shook for a while, and a sickly blush appeared on his face. A trace of blood flowed involuntarily from the corner of his mouth, and his face turned pale. Failed? Why failed? Except for the difference in level, there is no difference in the composition of this golden spirit. It seems that the reason is the mysterious understanding of the law. In the valley, Jason he frowned, unaware of his injured body, and wiped away the bloodshot eyes from the corners of his mouth, lost in thought. The law is mysterious. What is the power of the original law of the metal system? Let's take a look at the difference between Edma's gold system spiritual power and my own gold system spiritual power. Perhaps we can see something. What it took a long time. Jason came back to his senses from his meditation. His spiritual consciousness suddenly dispersed and entered his body. In his body, the power of the 7th level senior imperial spiritual master with 5 elements attributes, it was constantly flowing in the meridians. However, in addition to the power of the 5 elements, there was also some extremely powerful and sharp metal spiritual power. It was constantly colliding in his body, cutting out a piece of Jason's meridians. A small wound. Boom. Under Jason's control, the 7th level advanced 5-element spiritual power was like a torrent, which suddenly bound up one of the golden spiritual powers that were constantly destroying Jason's body. The two were constantly clashing. Collision, each other eradicated, and Jason's spiritual consciousness is to carefully perceive the obliteration and dispersion of the golden spiritual power. These are tyrannical. Sharp. The golden spiritual power that is constantly destroying Jason's body is exactly the terrifying golden spiritual power that remained in Jason's body after Edmes released the Sword of the World in the duel this morning. This morning. After the battle between Jason and Edmes, he was seriously injured and was carried down for treatment. Thanks to his strong recovery power and the healing of the wood spirit bead, Jason's injuries had actually recovered by noon. A lot. Of course. Edmes is not an ordinary person after all. His is the strongest blow of the world sword in the duel. A lot of terrifying golden spiritual power remained in Jason's body, making it impossible for Jason to recover for a while. But that's nothing. Even if he only recovered 30% of his strength, Jason was still confident of defeating anyone in the top 10 opponents except Lanuigusan and Cassinus. However, Jason did not participate in the afternoon showdown, but abstained. Directly returned to the Island of Transformation to practice. In the battle with Edmes, Jason gained a lot of insights and enlightenment, especially for the world of swords in the Golden System. He had a deep understanding of it. The laws of the metal system have been sublimated, and he has faintly touched the threshold of the laws of the world of metal swords. Jason, who returned to Huashan Island, did not rush to heal his injuries. Instead, he directly practiced in order to make a breakthrough in the laws of the metal system, able to display the world of swords equivalent to the 6th form of the basic secret technique of a gold spiritual master. At the same time, Jason also did something that ordinary people could not imagine. He did not attack those Edmes into himself. The metal spiritual power in the body is eliminated, but it is allowed to be destroyed in the body. Then it is up to you to carefully perceive the power of the law of the world sword released by Edmes. If other spiritual masters had known about this, they would have been frightened to death. A first-level high-level imperial spiritual master actually allowed the power of law released by an 8th-level high-level emperor spiritual master to wreak havoc within his body. By understanding these spiritual powers, we can understand new laws. It takes a crazy person to be able to do such a thing. This is because of Jason's strong recovery ability. The vitality released by the wooden spirit beads can completely offset the damage of the metal spiritual power, and his physical strength is extremely high. That's why Jason dares to do this. If ordinary spiritual masters dare to do this, I'm afraid the terrifying metal spiritual power had already caused his body to be continuously injured, and he finally died. After carefully sensing the constantly destroying metal spiritual power in his body, Jason tried to use it again. The world of swords. The world of swords, rise, Pung. Get up. Pung. The breakdowns again and again did not make Jason depressed. Instead, he constantly adjusted and tried. Jason did not eliminate the metal spiritual power that was constantly destroying his body, but instead realized it again and again. As time passed, the night passed quietly, and the sky began to brighten. The world of swords, rising. In the valley, Jason practiced all night without any rest. Cast it again, buzz. Countless golden sword shadows flew out from Jason's body. Thousands of golden lights appeared over the entire valley. Countless sword shadows floated for a while, and the original power of the golden law emerged throughout the arena. Then combined with the spiritual power released by Jason, it instantly condensed into a world of one side and a world of one sword. In the valley, countless golden rays of light were flying in the air like thousands of golden swords, constantly rotating and trembling slightly as the terrifying golden power spread out. It caused waves of distortion in the space. The golden glow renders the entire valley as beautiful as a fairyland on earth. In the middle of the valley, Jason, who originally thought he would fail again this time, was stunned. At this moment, he felt the golden spirit beads in his mind spin violently, and his mind was like a beam of light suddenly breaking through the darkness before dawn, making it bright. At the same time, an inexplicable feeling rose in his mind, giving him an inexplicable enlightenment, like an enlightenment, and his mind suddenly felt extremely smooth. This feeling, this state, Jason's eyes shone with excitement and joy, and his heart roared with joy. Haha, I finally understand this world of swords. Jason in the valley, his whole face was full of joy. Although he could feel that he had touched the threshold of the sword world in terms of the golden law, he did not think that he would master it in a short time. Each level of any series of laws is a huge division, representing its achievements in each series of laws. The understanding of the laws, especially as you go to the back, becomes deeper and deeper, and the difficulties will become greater and greater. It has always penetrated into the origin of the law. If the laws of any series are divided into 9 levels, the 7th level Emperor Spirit Master is just entering the threshold of the law for the first time. Generally, he can control the first level, which is considered normal, and those who can master the 2 levels are already considered to have a strong understanding of the laws. A gifted genius. As for the 3rd level of understanding, he is at the level of a monster. Like Jason's father, Renault, even with the god-killing Nadim who broke down the laws of the metal system one by one and taught them step by step, when he was a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master, he could only master the 3rd level illusion. As for the sword style, it was not until I entered the 8th level low-level Emperor Spirit Master that I mastered the 4th style of 10,000 swords returning to the sect and the 5th style of space cutting. Edmiz, who has been able to occupy the 2nd place for a long time among the core disciples of the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, the top power in the continent, is definitely a genius among geniuses. When he was an 8th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master, he mastered the 6th form of the Golden Law. The world of swords has been admired by countless people. Only those truly peerless geniuses and disciples with extremely strong talents can comprehend the 6th form when they are 8th level Emperor Spiritual Masters. After all, the laws of the metal system are divided into 9 types. If you can understand the 9th type, it will be within the control of the spiritual god. Originally, in Jason's imagination, although he had touched the threshold of the sword world and was full of confidence in himself, he would still need another 10 days and a half, or even 2 or 3 months, before he could truly master the world of swords. But he didn't expect that he could completely master the world of swords in one afternoon and one whole night. Even in this valley with 10 times the aura of the outside world, the comprehension and cultivation of laws were infinitely faster than in the outside world, which still gave Jason an unexpected surprise. Sword world, let me go. In the valley, a smile broke out on Jason's face and he shouted loudly, while using his spiritual consciousness to control the sword world. Boom! In the valley, countless sword chi crisscrossed the valley, and thousands of golden sword chi kept flying across the valley, like the huge schools of swimming fish in the sea, densely packed with thousands of golden swords, flying in the valley. Under Jason's control, he cut vertically and horizontally. The sword light that filled the sky wiped out everything everywhere, and the air was cut open, and countless tiny space cracks appeared. Go! 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 As he gradually became more proficient, Jason completely controlled this world. The power of this world of swords became more and more powerful, and terrifying spiritual power roared in the valley, as if the end is coming. Just when Jason was controlling the world of swords and becoming more and more proficient, a pleasant voice suddenly came from the valley on the side. Then, a green figure suddenly flew into the valley where Jason was. Rumble! The man's sudden intrusion immediately aroused the rejection of the sword world itself. The unique world law immediately squeezed the cyan figure. At the same time, some golden sword lights around him could not help but aiming at the cyan figure, he shot towards it. The terrifying sword energy suddenly cut open the void. Boom! A huge roar sounded, and the cyan figure suddenly retreated. The cyan light continued to flow around her body, resisting the attack of the sword light. This person was none other than Lan Yu, who was practicing in the valley on the other side. Gusen. At this moment, after seeing what was happening in the valley, Lan Yu Gusen looked at Jason in the valley with a look of astonishment on his face, with a hint of disbelief in his eyes. Sword world, this Jason, when did you master this sword world? She said in surprise, full of astonishment. Senior sister Lan Yu Gusen. Jason was also stunned and couldn't help but suddenly converge his spiritual power. The golden sword world suddenly collapsed, and the attributes of the 5 elements of the 5 colors suddenly poured out, filling the entire Jigu. Bang! The 5 elements of spiritual power in Jason's body vibrated violently, and the remaining golden spiritual power of Edmez in his body was completely shattered and dissipated. At the same time, the whole person flew towards the blue moon Gusen. After all, Edmez is an 8th-level high-level imperial spiritual master, and the golden spiritual power left in Jason's body contains the unique atmosphere of the golden law. If it were Jason yesterday, even if Jason's spiritual power, no matter how powerful he is, as a 7th-level senior imperial spiritual master, it will take a lot of effort to eliminate those golden spiritual powers. But now, after also comprehending the world of swords, Jason is relaxed. All these metal spiritual powers were destroyed invisible. Senior sister Lan Yu Gusen, what do you want from me? Coming to Lan Yu Gusen, Jason asked without answering her previous question. Lan Yu Gusen looked at Jason strangely, with a strange light in his beautiful eyes. I want to see how your injury is recovering. Today is the last day of the challenge. Knowing that you are injured, there may be disciples. I don't want to challenge you, and I want you to be careful, but now it seems that if any guy really challenges you, he is really asking for death. Dang. 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 At this moment, the summoning order of the city suddenly sounded again. Challenge? Jason whispered, then shook his head and said, let's go. Just when Jason and Lan Yu Gusen flew out of the valley together, whoosh. A stream of light also flew out from the periphery of Transformation Island, came to Jason's side, and then looked at Jason with surprised eyes. Brother Jason, I said your vitality is too tenacious. Cassinus couldn't help but say, yesterday morning when I was in the ring, I still remembered that you were seriously injured and could hardly stand still. Now it seems that you don't feel injured. Now, when I look at the disciples who are ranked in front of you, I am afraid they are going to panic. I think you were the first to panic. Besides, Lan Yu Gusen said. Is it possible? Cassinus smiled and said, if nothing else, Brother Jason, if you want the 2nd place, you can challenge me when the time comes, and I will give it to you directly. Cassinus spoke indifferently. 2nd place. Jason smiled. He was in a good mood now that he had mastered the world of swords. He couldn't help but said with a smile, why do I want this thing? I'd better leave it to you. For Jason, he doesn't care about rankings at all, he just wants to participate in the genius trial of the major forces in the continent. As long as the top 20 can participate, so in his opinion, the 1st and 20th place are not important at all. There won't be any difference. The 3 people flew quickly and quickly landed on the square of Sky City. Seeing these 3 people, many disciples in the square started talking, especially those ranked. The person in front of Jason was so frightened that his face turned pale. Jason naturally ignored the comments of these disciples, let alone their eyes, and directly sat down cross-legged in the center of the square and began to practice. Although he didn't seem to have any injuries on the surface, in fact, in just one day, he still had a lot of wounds in his body that had not been healed. If he really wanted to fight, he would only be able to release about 40 to 50% of his normal strength at most. Strength. However, just when Jason sat down cross-legged and before he started practicing, he suddenly felt an extremely sharp momentum coming from the other side of the square. A figure wearing a golden robe slowly walked over from the other side of the square. Wherever he went, countless disciples closed their mouths. In the silence, their eyes involuntarily fell on the man standing in front of Jason. On the fixed figure in golden robe. Cough. The man coughed slightly, staggered a little, and his face was extremely pale, but his eyes were like sharp blades, falling coldly on Jason, his eyes full of unyielding fighting spirit. What? Edmes, are you not convinced? Do you still want to find trouble? Cassinus stood in front of Jason and said coldly. Edmes did not speak and looked at Jason coldly. The oppressive and tense atmosphere spread in the square, causing all the disciples present to hold their breath involuntarily and stared at everything that happened here. Facing Edmund's sharp, and cold gaze, Jason looked at him with an indifferent expression. Since he had the strength to defeat the opponent yesterday, and today, after taking control of the sword world, Jason is even more confident. If the opponent refuses to accept it, he is confident to give the opponent an unforgettable lesson. In this weird atmosphere, Edmes looked at Jason coldly and slowly spoke. You are very strong. I lost this time, but I will definitely defeat you in the next elixir list competition. I will let you know that I, Edmes, am the #1 genius in Sky City. After finishing speaking. At this sentence, Edmes turned around directly, his back straight and firm, and returned to the other side of the square, crossing his legs to recover. The atmosphere in the entire square suddenly relaxed at this moment. This stinky guy. Cassinus curled his lips and said noncommittally. I'm waiting for you, but I'm afraid you will be even more disappointed next time. Jason responded in the middle of the square, his tone full of determination and confidence. Boom. Not long after the confrontation between Jason and Edmes, many core disciples gathered in the square and talked with each other. Suddenly, a powerful spiritual power came from the core in the distance. It spread out from the hall and enveloped everyone in the square. Where the core hall is, figures with terrifying spiritual power fluctuations all over their bodies walked out of it and landed on the VIP seats in the Sky Arena. It was none other than Elder Waterfield and others. The buzzing discussions in the entire square suddenly stopped, and many disciples stood there with eager eyes and full of fighting spirit. Whoosh! Under the expectant gazes of countless disciples, a protector from the VIP table suddenly rose into the sky and landed on the drawing table. He looked around and spoke, Everyone, today is the challenge of the elixir list. I think everyone knows the rules, so I won't go into details. The challenge of the elixir list is from low ranking to high ranking. Now, any disciple who wants to challenge can come and sign up. After the registration is over, this challenge will begin. As the protector's words fell, many disciples in the square looked at each other. One glance, and then whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh. One after another, figures soared into the sky, flew towards the lottery table, and started to sign up. While many disciples were signing up, many disciples who were ranked higher than their own strength looked at them in fear. The disciples flying onto the ring one by one. Among them, the disciples who were ranked between 3rd and 9th in this elixir ranking competition, especially the 3rd-ranked disciple, looked at Jason and Edmes in the square with a guilty conscience. People. The reason why they can occupy such a high position is all due to the two people's losses yesterday. If the two of them want to challenge the top people like themselves today, even if these disciples understand that Jason and Edmes, it is unlikely that the person will recover much from the serious injuries suffered yesterday, but he still knows in his heart that even if the other person is seriously injured, he cannot be the opponent of those two people. In addition to these disciples, the other disciples also looked at Jason and Edmes, curious about who they would challenge today. However, what shocked all the disciples was that Jason and Edmes were always sitting cross-legged in the square as stable as a rock, without any thought of challenging. Jason, you really don't think about it? The 10th place is not in line with your status. Even Cassinus couldn't sit still and looked at the unmoved Jason in the square. Sen couldn't help but make a sound. Identity? What identity do I have? Jason smiled and shook his head. My current strength is only 40 to 50% of my usual strength. Although it is more than enough to defeat the guys ranked in front of me, but to defeat them, except for that one except for the false name in the ranking, it has not improved my strength in any way, so why should I fight for that false name? Jason participated in this elixir list competition just for a place, not for a high ranking. If he does this, his body was not injured at the time, and there is a master like Edmez on the list, maybe Jason will challenge him. Playing against such a master will also be of great benefit to Jason's own practice, and he can learn many things. This is how he understood the world of swords, but he is now seriously injured. Although it is not particularly difficult to defeat the current 3rd place, Jason is not willing. A false reputation is nothing to Jason, and it doesn't matter. Otherwise, with Jason's identity and status in his previous life, he wouldn't have lived in seclusion on Halloween Mountain and devoted himself to practicing spiritual medicine. Seeing that Jason really had no pursuit of ranking, Cassinus could only shake his head and be speechless. Jason and Edmez's lack of challenge not only made some disciples feel relieved, but also greatly disappointed countless disciples. But soon, when the registration ended and the challenge began, everyone focused on the arena. Fierce battles followed one after another, especially when the few disciples between 21 and 30 were challenging the top 20 disciples. It was even more fierce. In the first battle, the one who persisted the disciple almost died during the battle, but was saved by Ta Can, the spiritual medicine master. The battle below was even more intense. Everyone was furious, using all kinds of secret techniques and forbidden moves. It was not like a simple duel, but like a meeting between life and death enemies. Everyone was red-eyed and regardless of the situation. Everything. After each battle, the entire sky arena was dyed red with blood, and the tragic aura soared into the sky, making everyone change their expressions. Even Elder Waterfield and others at the VIP table sighed repeatedly and were filled with emotion. Although this elixir ranking competition is a way used by the Elixir Master Tower to encourage competition among disciples and test their strength, such a fierce duel, but it's not what Waterfield and the others want to see. Of course, they have no way to stop it. The rules are like this. This is also the cruelty of reality. The weak prey on the strong. The challenge started in the morning and lasted until the afternoon. When the last battle ended, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. In such a fierce battle, 8 people in the top 20 positions changed positions, including 6 people from 11 to 20, and 2 from 3 to 9. In the many elixir ranking competitions over the years, this is the first time such a drastic change in rankings has occurred. The vigorous elixir list competition challenge finally ended amidst the heated discussions among countless disciples. The ranking of the new elixir list was truly settled, and every disciple was talking about it. Okay, the new elixir list competition ends here. After the competition, Elder Waterfield stood up and said, "Everyone, please return to your respective mansions. Disciples of the medicine list, don't be proud, because this ranking is only temporary, and those who have not made it, don't be discouraged. I hope you can continue your efforts. I hope to see you come out of the class in the next spiritual medicine list competition." There was silence in the square, and all the disciples were listening to Elder Waterfield's speech. Finally, "Jason, come with us." After the speech, Elder Waterfield cast his gaze on Jason's face, and commanded in the astonished eyes of countless disciples, and then the group rose up, flew directly towards the core hall. In an instant, countless disciples cast their gazes on Jason's face in the center of the square, their eyes filled with envy. Although none of them knew why Elder Waterfield called Jason alone, given Jason's performance in this elixir list competition, everyone speculated that Elder Waterfield would definitely call Jason over alone. What a good thing. In the square, Jason was also slightly stunned, with a look of astonishment on his face. Jason, since Elder Waterfield called you over, we will go back to the island of transformation first. See you on the island then. Although I don't know why the old guy Waterfield called you, but I think it shouldn't be anything bad thing. From the side, Lan Yugusan said. Yes, there must be something good going on. Katsuna shouted, this is so unreasonable. Why did Elder Waterfield only call you Brother Jason? I am the second best person in this matter. It's really unfair that he is famous, but doesn't get this treatment. Jason was confused, nodded, and then directly jumped into the air, flying towards the core hall under the envious eyes of countless disciples. At the entrance of the core hall, Protector Mingxi was waiting for Jason. When he saw Jason approaching, a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Jason, Elder Waterfield and the others are waiting for you inside. Jason's amazing strength in the medicine list competition made Protector Mingxi's attitude towards him become more respectful, with a smile on his face. Guardian Mingxi, I wonder why Elder Waterfield called me here. Jason followed Protector Mingxi into the core hall and asked at the same time. Haha, I don't know about that. I'm just following the orders of Elder Waterfield and others to wait for you at the entrance of the temple. As for the specific reason, I don't know. Protector Mingxi said with a smile, but I guess, based on your performance in this elixir list competition, it shouldn't be a bad thing. Jason nodded and said nothing. The two of them walked in a hurry, and in a moment they arrived at the entrance of a hall, deep in the core hall. After sending Jason here, Protector Mingxi retreated directly. Jason opened the door and walked directly in. The whole hall was simple and grand, with an inexplicable aura, giving people a very deep foundation. In the hall, there is a long table. Several elders and palace masters from this elixir list competition are all sitting behind the table, looking at Jason at the door, and Elder Kevlin is even more so. She looked at him with a smile on her face and a friendly expression. Jason, I have met some elders, the master of the palace. Jason said, and then stood still in front of a few people. Jason, do you know why we called you here alone? Elder Waterfield looked at Jason with a smile and said. I don't know. Jason shook his head. Haha. Elder Waterfield laughed. Jason, in view of your excellent performance in this elixir list competition, our elixir master tower has decided to release you after your injuries are healed, serves as the branch president of our elixir medicine tower in a certain part of the mainland. As for the region, it is the Londo province of the southeastern province of the Salem Empire. What, you are calling me a foreigner? I am the president of the southeastern province of the Salem Empire. President of multiple provinces? Jason couldn't help being shocked, but his brows furrowed deeply. To be honest, Jason joined the Alchemist Tower just to improve himself and at the same time see what kind of organization this legendary Alchemist Tower is. Jason has always been full of doubts about the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, because in his previous life, he had never heard of the Twin Towers organization. In his previous life, Jason devoted himself to practicing spiritual medicine and hardly wasted any extra time on other things. This also led to him not knowing much about the history of the mainland, and even how the Lingdo Empire that unified the continent was formed in his previous life. Yes, as a time traveler, Jason didn't know how the all-out continental war broke out hundreds to 1,000 years later. But this does not mean that Jason is completely isolated from the world. If Jason has never heard of the Spiritual Master Tower, it is okay. After all, Jason was not a spiritual master in his previous life and never paid attention to this information, but this Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, Jason had never heard of it in his previous life, which really puzzled Jason. Jason's achievements and identity in his previous life, as well as anything related to elixirs in the history of the entire continent, he had a very deep understanding of, and there was no way he would have missed anything. For example, his first disciple in this life, Archimedes, was known as the #1 elixir master in the last 1,000 years of the spiritual calendar in his previous life. He started a line of control elixir masters and made great contributions to the perfection of elixir science. Contribution, becoming one of the most outstanding elixir masters in the history of the development of elixir science. The same teacher as Dini Shah, Benjamin Saipan of the Lubanar Kingdom, was later rated as a master of spiritual medicine in the entire continent and one of the most outstanding modern masters in spiritual medicine. Both of these two people are outstanding elixir masters of this era, and Jason knows them very well. But in the introduction of any elixir master, or even in any elixir book, there is no such introduction to the elixir master tower. This is almost an unbelievable thing. It clearly exists in this world, standing at the pinnacle and top of this continent, but no news about it has been spread to future generations, which is enough to shock Jason. Therefore, Jason joined the Alchemist Tower. On the one hand, he was curious, and on the other hand, he wanted to grow quickly. In this life, he could break through the shackles of his previous life, continue to grow, and finally break the fate of his previous life and achieve the 10th level. The God of Medicine. Jason has been working hard for this goal, practicing hard, all in order to understand the true meaning of the elixir and become a 10th level medicine god that has never appeared in the mainland's thousands of years of history. But now, Waterfield has put him in a difficult position by asking him to serve as the president of the Elixir Union of the Rondo province of the Salem Empire. For him, except for continuous growth, everything else is illusory. In Jason's eyes, let alone being the president of the Elixir Masters Union of a province, even if he is given the title of Emperor of the Empire, he will not be able to do it. Not necessarily willing. Under the gaze of Elder Waterfield and others, Jason frowned and pondered for a long time and finally said, "Elder Waterfield, I really appreciate your love for me, but I don't want to serve as a member of the Toronto Provincial Trade Union Council. Commander, if you can, you should choose someone else." After Jason finished speaking, Waterfield and others in the hall were stunned for a moment. Jason Elder Coughlin shouted directly. "Why?" Elder Waterfield and others' expressions quickly returned to calmness, and they spoke calmly. "There is no reason. For a spiritual medicine master, only true and wholehearted devotion can achieve something. As for being the president of the Toronto Provincial Trade Union, I neither have the ability nor the time." Jason spoke without changing his tone. After hearing Jason's answer, Elder Waterfield and the others looked at each other with a bit of confusion on their faces. "Jason, this is just an external mission given to you by our spiritual medicine master tower. It is equivalent to an experience. You are only temporarily serving as the president of the Spiritual Medicine Master Guild of the Rondo province. You will wait until you are tried by the talented disciples of the top forces in the mainland. When the time comes, you can come back." Elder Waterfield said with hatred. "Only temporary?" Jason frowned. "In that case, you can consider it." Now he has been promoted to the 7th level high-level Imperial Spiritual Master. At this point, if Jason wants to advance to the 8th level Imperial Spiritual Master, in other words, blindly practicing is not the best way. Maybe going out to practice will bring him some special insights. Think about it, Elder Waterfield, as the elder of the Spirit Medicine Master Tower and a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master, his eyes almost stared straight at this moment. Do you know what this external mission represents? Countless cores the disciples can't even think about it, but you still want to consider it. This is really what does this external mission mean? Jason was confused. He had no idea about this external mission. Are you the core disciple of our spiritual medicine master tower? You don't even care about this. Elder Waterfield was speechless. Jason's answer almost made him collapse. "Okay, you have only joined the core palace for more than a year, and you probably don't understand many things. Let's do this. I will give you a month. This month, you can just recover from your injuries, and at the same time, you can get to know a little bit more. I'll ask for your opinion again in a few months. Okay, you can go out," Elder Waterfield said in a fake tone. Looking at Jason's back disappearing at the entrance of the hall, Elder Waterfield, Elder Sevlin and others looked at each other and said with a wry smile, this opportunity, but I asked the two deputy tower masters, who is the right one? He actually refused the approval he received without even thinking about it. It's really Elder Waterfield. Jason has only joined the core temple for more than a year, so he probably doesn't know some things clearly. I believe he will change his mind by then. Elder Coughlin said. Perhaps it is precisely because of this persistent and hardworking attitude that Jason is able to achieve such achievements at such a young age. On the side, Lord Cornelius of the Law Enforcement Hall suddenly spoke up. Everyone's eyes lit up and they all nodded. Riots in the spiritual sea, the island of gods. Whoosh! A stream of light flew from the distant sky and suddenly settled on the God Transformation Island. It was Jason who had returned from the core hall. When Jason Net just landed on the island of transformation, a figure suddenly flew out from a mountain wall and landed in front of Jason. Brother Jason, why are you back so soon? Why did Elder Waterfield and the others call you? Cassinus asked, curiously. Elder Waterfield and the others asked me to recover from my injuries and then be released to serve as the president of the Elixir Guild in the Rondo province of the Salem Empire. Jason spoke up. What? Are you asked to be the president of the Elixir Medicine Masters Union in the Londo province of the Salem Empire? Cassinus was stunned for a moment and looked at Jason with surprise. Yeah. Jason nodded, but I rejected him. What, rejected by you? Why did you refuse? On the side, Cassinus, who had a surprise on his face, suddenly widened his eyes. Yes, why did you refuse such a good opportunity? A clear and beautiful voice also sounded in Jason's ears with surprise. The blue moongoosen flew out of the valley and landed next to Jason. What? Is there anything special about this broadcast? Jason couldn't help but be curious after seeing the performance of Cassinus and Lanue Goosen, and then thinking about the appearance of Elder Waterfield and others. Brother Jason, please go back and talk to Elder Waterfield and the others. Do you know that in our core hall, countless disciples who want the opportunity to go outside can't get it? Cassinus said nervously. Seeing Jason's slightly confused expression, Lanue Goosen spoke up. Jason, after you joined the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, did you find that our Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, especially the core hall, pays special attention to the disciples in the Spiritual Master Tower? Achievements in this area, but less attention is paid to achievements in spiritual medicine. Jason nodded. Yes, he did discover this problem after joining the Elixir Master Tower. Both the Elixir City and the Core Palace strongly encourage competition among disciples, especially the strength between disciples. Even the Elixir list of the Core Palace, the competition is about who is stronger among the disciples, not their attainments in elixirs. You know, the Elixir Medicine Master has a very special status on the mainland. It is the most noble profession in the entire continent. That is because of its special role. At the same time, it is also because of the power of the Elixir Medicine Master system. And our Elixir Medicine Master Tower is the most powerful organization among the spiritual medicine masters in the entire continent represents this system. The reason why the spiritual medicine masters on the continent have such a high status is entirely because of the power of the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower. Lanue Goosen looked solemn, explained, but a spiritual medicine master, in terms of strength, spiritual medicine masters of the same level cannot compare with spiritual masters of the same level. If our spiritual medicine master tower weakens, the entire system will weaken. So when a powerful medicine master, a spiritual medicine master often encounters a situation when he meets a powerful spiritual master, that is, he is enslaved. The spiritual master will use his overwhelming strength to make the spiritual medicine master surrender, thereby enslaving him instead of respecting him, which is why our spiritual medicine master pagoda pays special attention to each disciple's own strength. A spiritual medicine master who is not strong himself, no matter how high his attainments in spiritual medicine are, is of no use. He can only become a slave who prepares medicine for the strong. He looks very glorious, but in fact he has no freedom. And our core disciples are the future heirs of the alchemist tower. If someone really inherits the alchemist tower in the future, first of all, in terms of strength, they must stand at the top of the entire continent. Without the strength to roar to the top of the continent, then the only one as a result, our elixir master tower will be divided and enslaved by many powerful people in the mainland, and the elixir masters on the entire continent will also fall into darkness. This is why the tower pays more attention to strength than elixir science. For the main reason of standing out, I would rather let a disciple who is at the pinnacle of the continent and have only ordinary spiritual medicine skills inherit the spiritual medicine master tower than let a disciple who is extremely accomplished in spiritual medicine but whose strength cannot suppress the scene inherit. Lan Yuigusan spoke slowly, with a solemn tone. Indeed, after hearing what Lan Yuigusan said, Jason nodded. From his perspective, how could he not understand such a truth? Regardless of the high status of elixir masters on the mainland, it is because of the power of the entire system. The Elixir Master Tower, the Elixir Master Union, these organizations have combined the power of the entire continent. The Elixir Masters connected together and achieved a very high status. But without the backing of these powerful organizations, facing the Elixir Masters will have extremely miserable consequences, just like the territory of chaos. In the territory of chaos, Elixir Masters did not have a unified organization before. They were assets that every family and force had to rob. They had no freedom at all and could only rely on powerful families. A single powerful Elixir Master was extremely dangerous, especially for hostile families. If they can't get it, there is only one way, which is to destroy it. However, in the four major empires of the mainland and in the northwest countries, these organizations infiltrated by the Elixir Trade Union, the Elixir Master's status is extremely high. If any family dares to kill the Elixir Master at will, they will face only destruction. Without the Alchemist Tower and the Alchemist Guild, the entire continent would have turned into the chaotic territory it once was, a place of darkness. In fact, looking back on himself in his previous life, Jason felt a little lucky. In his previous life, when he was not very strong, due to some special circumstances, he accidentally saved several masters. With their support, Jason was able to immerse himself in the study of spiritual medicine. Later, as Jason's attainments in spiritual medicine became stronger and stronger, and there were more and more followers behind him, he stood at the top of this continent. Without that initial encounter and the support of those experts, as Jason's backing, Jason could only choose to become a worshipper of some families, or work for the Lingdo Empire, and work hard for resources. In the end, he might not be able to there are achievements in previous lives. At this moment, Jason couldn't help but feel a little admiration for the master of the Elixir Master Tower. He admired his contribution to the Elixir Masters on the entire continent. Regardless of the other person's attainments in elixir science, just this substitute Jason is worthy of admiration for his consideration for all the spiritual medicine masters in the continent. He is worthy of being the master of the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower in the Holy Land of the Spiritual Medicine Masters on the continent. In fact, Jason understands these principles, but no matter in his previous life or in this life, Jason is used to walking alone, so he has not developed such a consciousness. And do you know what is the biggest difference between our core disciples and the outside disciples? Lan Yuigusan looked at Jason and said, "Our core disciples are cultivated by the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower and are likely to inherit the inheritance of the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower in the future." In other words, when the current Tower Master steps down, the new Tower Master will be selected from us disciples, not the elders, palace masters, and protectors. This requires that our strength must be strong, so the city in the sky will pay so much attention to the strength of our core disciples. Jason supported the point. Listening to Lan Yuigusan's words, Jason understood clearly the atmosphere of pursuing strength in the Elixir Master Tower. For the core disciples to inherit the Elixir Master, he had also heard about the tower inheritance in many places. But in fact, many of the statements circulated in the tower are wrong. Lan Yuigusan's tone suddenly became solemn, not all disciples have the opportunity to inherit the inheritance of the spiritual medicine master tower, only those who have been let go. Only a disciple has such qualifications. What? On the side, after hearing Lan Yugusan's words, Cassinus exclaimed, I didn't hear that the release just means that there are more. Do you want to inherit? How come only the disciples who are released are qualified? Lan Yugusan smiled, that is just a statement spread by the spirit medicine master Pagoda to encourage the disciples to practice. In fact, only those who are released are only the disciples have this qualification. So that's it. Cassinus shook his head with an incomprehensible expression on his face. Cassinus knew the background of Blue Moon Gusan, and there should be no mistake in what she said. Jason's brows raised. At this moment, he finally understood why Lan Yugusan and the elders Kevlin were so surprised when they heard his refusal. If he gave up, he would give up the opportunity to inherit the inheritance of the spiritual medicine master tower. No wonder they will have such an expression. Originally, I thought that being released outside would only give me a better chance of inheriting. I didn't expect that only disciples who had been released outside would have a chance. If that's the case, Jason, then you have to go find Elder Waterfield and the others. You must transfer this. Let's get the opportunity to play outside again. Cassinus' expression also became serious. Yeah. Lan Yugusan also nodded. Releasing it to the outside world means that the spirit medicine master tower really sees you in its eyes and wants to train you and sharpen you, so it will release you to the outside world. Otherwise, there is no need at all, and the qualifications for release cannot be determined by any elder or hall master. Even the 4 elders and the 10 hall masters in the tower do not have this power. If I am not wrong, your qualification for external release is determined by the 2 deputy tower masters. Jason, do you know how many of our disciples in this generation are eligible for external release? How many? Hello Jason Qian, 3, I don't count. Among the core disciples of this generation, only Edmes and Cassinus have been spared. Now even counting you, there are only 3, and I estimate that at most there are only a few of us. I've seen it. With the qualifications of the remaining guys, no more disciples will be eligible to be released. So few? Jason couldn't help being surprised. Although he knew that this quota should be it wasn't much, but I didn't expect that among the many disciples in this generation, only 2 other people would be spared except myself. Isn't it that the inheritance of the spiritual medicine master tower was only produced among a few of us? Cassinus was also surprised. Haha, although there are only a few of us among the disciples of this term, have I ever said that we are the only disciples who have been released? Lan Yugusan smiled, the tower master of this term is here. It has been hundreds of years. We are the strongest among the core disciples of this generation in the past few decades. However, there have been many strong core disciples before us, and some of them have also been awarded external titles. Qualifications, now, are not in the Sky City, but have been arranged to some places on the mainland to hold important positions, but the number of them is not large. So, I advise you to seize this opportunity. You refuse once, there won't be a second time. Lan Yugusan concluded in the end. Let's go, brother Jason, I will accompany you now. You will refuse such an opportunity. I can't stand it anymore. Seeing that Jason still had the unwavering expression on his face, Cassinus couldn't help it any longer, and pulled Jason towards the core hall. Jason smiled and said, Cassinus. Nusi, don't be so anxious. Although I rejected the request of the Waterfield elders, they gave me a month to recuperate. At that time I can still be released if I want. I'll give you a month. Will you be willing to go out? They say that, but what if they regret it later? Cassinus spoke out. Repent? Jason smiled and shook his head. Seeing Jason's unhurried look, Cassinus was completely convinced. Brother Jason, I really admire you now. You can be so calm in such a situation, you are awesome. He said I don't know, but in Jason's eyes, compared with the way of the medicine god, the qualifications to inherit the spiritual medicine master tower are not that important in practice. Of course, since it was only for a period of time, Jason had made up his mind that it would be a good idea to go out and experience it at that time. Under the 10 times spiritual energy of Huashan Island, although the speed and quality of absorbing spiritual energy were stronger than those of the outside world, there are many, but advancing from a 7th level high-level Emperor spiritual master to an 8th level low-level Emperor spiritual master is not just a matter of simple cultivation, it requires a unique understanding. Maybe you can get some insights by going out, and since you are going to the Salem Empire, you can also take a look at your disciple Loken, as well as his father and disciple Archimedes from the territory of chaos. After doing some calculations, Jason discovered that he had not returned to the territory of chaos for nearly 5 years. Even Loken had not been seen for 3 years. As a teacher, he was really helpless. Competent. When he thought of them, Jason's face became a little dull and his heart was empty due to his long years of practice. But at this moment, it suddenly started to fluctuate and boil. Yeah, it's good to go back and take a look, isn't it? A smile broke out at the corner of Jason's mouth. In the following days, Jason stayed on the island of transformation and continued to recuperate. With his strong recovery ability, on the 3rd day, he completely healed the injuries in his body, and his whole body was completely healed. The condition has been improved to its best. In the following time, Jason did not take any rest. He continued to practice in the valley with 10 times the external spiritual energy, filling his body with the 7th level advanced spiritual power. It had only been less than a month since he had been promoted to the 7th level senior imperial spiritual master. He was far from reaching the peak of the 7th level advanced master, let alone the threshold of the 8th level imperial spiritual master. Now he needed to continuously absorb and strengthen the spiritual power in his body. Time and practicing in this valley with 10 times the spiritual power of the outside world, 1 day is equal to 10 days in the outside world. In the outside world, there may not be such a good opportunity, and Jason will naturally not give up. Of course, Jason is not just practicing. In normal times, he will discuss with Cassianus and Lanuigusan, and even discuss some knowledge about elixirs. Occasionally, he will also look for some elixir materials in the valley, try some formulations. At least in terms of spiritual knowledge and medicine, Jason still has many shortcomings and needs to learn from Blue Moon Gusan and Cassianus. In this way, as time passed bit by bit, Jason's strength was also improving in practice, and his attainments in spiritual consciousness flow and spiritual medicine had reached a deeper level.